The Bay of Biscay, also known as the Valley of Death and Water, is a gulf located in the Celtic Sea of the northwest Atlantic Ocean between the northern coast of Spain and the western coast of France. It's one of the most dangerous areas in the Atlantic Ocean and has taken the lives of hundreds of sailors. In 2009, Mike, a professional diver, went to explore the extravagance of the Atlantic and unknowingly reached the most dangerous zone. It's all about his survival and one of the most horrifying incidents one can imagine. This is the story. Viewers' discretion is advised. Mike was always in awe of some fabulous expedition opportunities. Mike was genuinely passionate about marine life. He wanted to protect marine life from extinction. He used to get offended by the water pollution and how animals were suffering because of it. Mike saw an advertisement regarding cage diving in the daily newspaper. He decided to contact the expedition in charge and enrolled himself for the voyage. The motive was to explore marine life and the fundamental reason behind the extinction of animals. Mike had signed up for this, and he was the right person too, because he had a heart of gold. He mustered up some courage to dive in the great Atlantic Ocean. Little did he know that the tranquil ocean would give him memories that would scar his soul for the rest of his life. Mike bubbled with anticipation, descended in the depths of the ocean. He had necessary equipment to cope up with dreadful marine creatures. Mike was surrounded by metallic bars, and it was the only shackle between life and death. Inside the cage, he felt both vulnerable and invincible, surrounded by the vast expanse of blue, but he was used to it. Every inch down the water came up with lurking darkness. Water gradually deepened as the sturdy vessel covered some distance, and the marine inhabitants were roaming all around. Mike was capturing the beauty of the water body. Mike could see hundreds of sea creatures, including the coral reefs, sand dunes, and jellyfish. He was admiring the inanimate scenes of nature, but he was saddened to see the polluted water. His olfactory pathway could sense the toxicity in the water, and he wanted to do something for it. He was capturing photographs and had decided to create a documentary on the impact of pollutants on marine environment. Mike was thrilled to see the marine creatures around him, and he felt himself as a member of their family. It was an awe-inspiring sight, but every passing second was increasing the anticipation. Mike finally entered the danger zone of the water body. It was a place where many divers had died, and their bodies were not found after hours of rescue operation. This place was considered as the black hole of the sea, as not even a single ray of sunlight reached this part of the ocean. It was complete darkness, and the vessel was slowly moving. The headlights of the vessel were making it easier to see marine animals. Mike could feel some tiny creatures inside the cage that obviously were the fish. After an hour of constant dopamine rush, Mike saw the first shark gliding gracefully through the sea. Its body was reflecting sunlight like silver bullets, and the metal-like teeth seemed more powerful than the metallic cage bars. Mike captured the furious predator in his waterproof camera because he desperately wanted to capture the shark's behavior. The shark seemed friendly, but Mike was playing safe. He was well aware of the shark's nature and the fact that even a slightest mistake could lead to severe retaliation. Mike obviously wanted things to go smoothly because he didn't want death to be his destiny. Everything seemed smooth, and the depths of the sea were as tranquil as the surface. Mike was pretty much happy with his expedition because he had gotten a marvelous chance to explore marine mammals. The entire scenario of peace changed into terror when the shark made some erratic movements. The shark furiously opened and closed its gigantic mouth. He was gripped in an extraordinary sense of unease, but he had to maintain his control on his nerves. Neither trembling or shaking could change the shark's behavior. The only thing that could help was a smart move and loads of patience. The shark was curious to see some strangers in its vicinity. Mike could feel the scarcity of light as the sun was setting. He had to get back to the surface before sunset, but the aggressive marine predator had taken its toll. The shark's curiosity was changing into aggression, and it was making some queer movements. The shark started circling around the cage in extreme fury. He shuddered with fear but regained his consciousness to get through the situation. The shark rammed into the metallic cage, using its dagger's teeth and muscular body. Mike screamed and pushed back to maintain a safe distance. Metal groans and screams echoed in the middle of the great ocean as the cage shook violently. Mike could feel his hippocampus releasing fear hormones and his sympathetic system constricting his vessels. He had to stay alert because the shark could turn the tables within seconds. With a thumping heart and chills of horror running down his spine, he pressed the emergency control button. He knew that the sound could infuriate the predator, but there was no other choice. He couldn't deal with the massive creature alone. The buzzing sound broke silence in the wilderness. Water currents started shifting because the shark didn't admire the noise pollution in its vicinity. This massive silhouette was larger than all the sharks Mike had encountered before, and this was the only thing triggering him. There was intensity in the shark's gaze, as if its eyes were stuck on Mike. Terror surged through his body, as the predator's strength was thousands times greater than the metallic bars. It could attack in minutes and enjoy human flesh. The shark was genuinely craving for fresh blood. The shark attacked for the second time with more force, sending shockwaves all around. The great white shark crashed into the cage with a sudden lunge. The cage couldn't cope up with the immense force and started crumpling. Mike was swimming away from the greedy creature, but the opposing water waves were making it difficult for him. A jagged piece of metal lost its connection with the cage and tore into Mike's leg, increasing his serotonin levels. He could feel a searing pain in his skin, and his blood could be seen mingling in the water. The broken metallic bar created a space for the shark to enter the cage. All it needed was an easy access to its prey, and it was near to success. He was constantly fighting with the adrenaline surge, trying to stay conscious and make some smart moves. He hit upon a plan and rushed towards his emergency kit. Fueled with desperation, Mike took out a diving knife to fend off the furious predator. It was a battle of nerves, a never-ending fight between Mike's heart and brain. His professionalism and experience seemed way too small in front of the rage of predators. Time was stretching, vision was blurred, and Mike's strength was waning with every passing moment. Mike was trying to muster up his courage, but pessimism was striking him from every corner of his heart. Mike attacked the shark with the sharp knife. It was nothing less than disaster because the shark's aggressiveness increased to 10-folds. The sharpness of the knife didn't even create a small bruise on the shark's body. It was a different creature, not only because of the massive body, but the strength too. The shark got infuriated and firmly gripped Mike's arm. He could feel his bones cracking and a fountain of blood splashing out of it. The shark was tightening its grip and immersing its teeth into Mike's arm. Mike was trying to get through it, but it was getting difficult for him. Pain signals to his hypothalamus were causing unconsciousness. That was the first step to death. Mike had lost control on his nerves, and despite all the efforts, his vision was blurred and dizziness had surrounded him. He was feeling severe vertigo and nausea. That was a clear sign of him giving up in front of the dangerous creature. Just when the clouds of despair had plunged and there was no hope left, a powerful spotlight pierced the gloom. Mike managed to open his eyes and saw Mandy in a diving suit. Mandy was a member from the emergency control and was here to protect her mate. Mike gathered his remaining energy and signaled Mandy. There was a rescuer, but it wasn't easy to get through the danger as the shark was encircling the half-broken cage. Its mouth was half inside the cage and Mike was stuck inside. Mandy was a few inches away from the shark in the crumpling cage. Mandy was noticing the hierarchy in the shark's behavior. She was pondering over the story etched in its scars and its widened eyes. Mandy's heart was pounding and her mind was focused on the perilous task ahead. The shark was dancing in the watery realm, generating a mesmerizing scenery. The shark thrashed its tail with an unsettling force and rattled the cage for a second time. Mike couldn't bear the vibrations in his body and got unconscious. Mandy got worried and decided to deceive the shark. The only way for them to get back safely to the surface was through swimming, but before that, the task was to take Mike out of the vessel. Mandy made some whistling noises to grab the shark's attention. She knew about the consequences, but she had no choice. She couldn't let her mate die in the great water body. The shark didn't look towards Mandy, but Mandy managed to grab its attention after constant whistling. The shark lifted its gigantic body and gazed at Mandy, who was confident enough to get rid of the massive beast. The beast turned around and started following Mandy, who was swimming at a maximum pace. Mandy was changing directions because she couldn't match the shark's speed. All she could do to frustrate the shark was to change her directions. It was like a deadly game between cat and mouse. It was not simply about Mandy's survival, but the survival of two professional divers, and this was the reason that was eclipsing all her fear. The shark was moving in anticipation and anxiety. Its eyes were rolling in exhaustion, giving Mandy a positive sign. She was swimming and fighting with the opposite waves. Mandy was a few kilometers away from the metallic vessel. After constant struggle, Mandy managed to get rid of the shark. She looked back to see ordinary marine creatures doing their routine chores. It was a sigh of relief that enhanced her optimism. She rushed towards the cage to check her fellow diver. He was unconscious, and his oxygen saturation was decreasing, making his skin tinted blue. Mandy tried to wake Mike up, but all in vain. She pressed the emergency control button and waited for a few minutes. She couldn't stay there for very long because of the lack of oxygen. She wanted an immediate rescue, but another danger was waiting for her. When no signal of hope appeared, Mandy started patting him to help him regain his consciousness. Mike was severely injured with 2 of his fingers swimming in the blue abyss. He had already dealt with a threshold of pain, and Mandy wasn't expecting more from him. She wanted to carry Mike to the surface, but even for that, Mike needed to regain his consciousness. Mandy decided to take off her oxygen mask and shift to the smaller one with less oxygen saturation. It was a very difficult task because she had to swim against the waves, but it was the only way that could help him. Mandy was gasping and panting out of desperation and the scarcity of oxygen in her plasma, but she had to do this to be the heroine of the story. She had to do this for the diving community and for her bruised fellow. Nitrogen narcosis had taken its toll, and Mandy was victim to it. Mandy switched Mark's oxygen mask and started doing CPR. Mike started responding after a few minutes. Mandy was patting him on the back and yelling at the top of her high-pitched voice. After half an hour of constant struggle, Mike began responding to her direction, but he was in real pain. He had lost 2 of his fingers, his ulna bone had cracked into pieces, and his blood was craving for oxygen. Mandy directed Mark to slowly swim. She tied her fellow with her fragile body using a rope. Mandy was quite professional at rescuing, and she did this within minutes. They didn't have enough time to get through this. They had 2 hours of oxygen left with them, and their bruises were not allowing them to stay in the water for so long. They could dissolve with the high-speed waves if they stayed in the marine body for more than 2 hours. Mandy was swimming with all her might. Meanwhile, Mike was gradually using his broken leg and arms to help Mandy. He was an Iron Man, and he couldn't completely rely on her friend. He was helping her at the top of his leftover strength. Mandy felt a ray of sunshine refracting from the water surface to her wounded body. They had almost reached the water surface. Mike was gasping, and they had 20 minutes of oxygen left. They could hear the noise of ship engines and rescuers looking for them. Both the divers appeared on the tranquil water surface that seemed peaceful from above, but was more dreadful than disaster on Earth. Their lungs were burning as they gulped in the sweet oxygen. Rescuers rushed towards the divers and pulled them on the boat. Their bodies were battered, their spirits shaken, but they had defied the odds and survived. After the preliminary first aid, both of them were taken to a hospital. Both had severe injuries and their lung scans showed an infection. Mike had lost his leg for his passion, and Mandy was an embodiment of bravery. They had taken a risk on their lives, but their passion for diving was more than their wounds. They were going to live with a lifelong trauma with scars that couldn't be healed, and they were ready for it. They had learned about life's fragility and the depth of human connection. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification button to get updates of our upcoming videos. We'll meet in a brand new video with another brave story. Till then, take care.